All right, welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. We're taking a look today, a real close look at English grammar.
Yeah, really sort of those like basic but really key concepts that we use every day.
Right, the kind of stuff we don't often think about, but
Mm.
it's like the foundation of everything, right?
Absolutely.
And we've got this really interesting conversation we're going to be unpacking today that covers some of those really essential parts of English grammar.
So, if you are looking to level up your communication skills, or maybe you're just curious about how the language works, this one's definitely for you.
Yeah, this is a great one to kind of refresh some of those fundamentals.
All right, so where do we begin?
Well, this conversation dives right in talking about the core components of English sentences, the different types of words, and they call these parts of speech,
Right.
right?
Right. And I think this is a really good place to start because, if you're building anything, you need to know your materials.
Right, yeah, like what are we actually working with here?
Exactly. So they lay out some of the main parts of speech. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, and even interjections. It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in, yeah, but they actually break it down really well. I think a lot of people probably already have some sense of this, even if they don't know the fancy terms.
Yeah, I mean, we use these all the time without really thinking about it.
Right, so like they use this really simple example. The cat sleeps quietly.
Perfect example. So simple, but so illustrative.
Right, so cat, that's the noun, the thing we're talking about. Sleeps, what the cat is doing, that's the verb. And then quietly, that tells us how the cat is sleeping.
Mm.
So that's our adverb.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how each of these word types carries its own specific job within a sentence.
Like each one plays its role, right?
Exactly. It's like each instrument in an orchestra contributing its unique sound to the overall harmony.
And they make the point that if you were to swap those out, even just one of them, the meaning could shift dramatically.
Yeah, just imagine saying, and the loudly cat naps. It
hmm
just sounds strange, right?
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense, really.
Right. You've changed the parts of speech performing those roles, and the sentence, while grammatically structured, conveys a very different image.
And that's why understanding these roles is so fundamental to clear communication.
Absolutely.
Now, the conversation then moves on to another big topic, verb tenses.
Yeah, this is something that can be a bit tricky for some folks.
Definitely. It
Mm.
gets confusing, right?
Yeah.
Especially for people learning English as a second language.
Absolutely. But the discussion here focuses on the three main tenses: past, present, and future.
Those are the ones that really trip people up, I think.
Right. So they use the verb eat to illustrate this. I eat pizza, that's the present tense. I ate pizza, past tense. And I will eat pizza, that's future tense.
It's so interesting how just those little changes to the verb completely change the meaning, right?
Yeah, and those tweaks like adding an ed or using will act as our time signals. Getting those wrong can definitely lead to some confusion about when an action actually took place.
Like if you say, I eat pizza yesterday, it just sounds wrong, right?
Exactly. It breaks the rules of how we use tenses to signal time.
Right. And they also point out, which I thought was interesting, that not all languages deal with time in the same way.
Yeah, some languages might rely more on context or adverbs of time, making the English system of tenses a specific feature to learn.
It makes you realize how complex language really is.
Definitely.
Okay, so moving on. The last big piece of grammatical foundation they cover is subject-verb agreement.
This might sound a bit formal, but it's actually a pretty straightforward idea.
Right, it's all about making sure that your verb matches up with your subject, right?
Exactly, in terms of whether it's singular or plural.
Right. So if you have a singular subject like she, the verb typically needs that S at the end, like she walks.
And the conversation highlights that she walk without that S is a common mistake, especially for beginners. It's one of those subtle rules that can really affect how correct your English sounds.
Right, it makes a big difference.
And what I think is fascinating is that for native speakers, this agreement often happens automatically. We don't even think about it, it just feels right.
It's like our brains just know it sounds right.
Exactly. It's so deeply ingrained in our understanding of the language.
So yeah, in this deep dive, we've unpacked some really important pieces of English grammar, recognizing those different parts of speech, understanding verb tenses and how they work, and that key rule of subject-verb agreement.
It's amazing how much complexity there is in even the most basic elements of language.
Right, and it makes you wonder, what happens when you start playing with these rules?
Yeah. What happens when you intentionally use a verb tense in an unexpected way? Or maybe when a non-native speaker makes a small mistake in subject-verb agreement, does it change the meaning, even subtly? There's so much to think about.
It's those little nuances that make language so powerful and interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to wrap things up here.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop and let everybody chew on that for a bit.
And as always, thanks so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.